Hey y'all, my name is Penny Larson. Welcome to my ongoing series on flow or drumming in the zone. This is kind of episode 2.5 of 3 parts, so I guess technically it's going to be 4 parts and this is part 3 of 4. But this isn't really an in-depth episode. I'm not going to demonstrate anything on the kit today. We're just going to talk, and we're going to talk a little bit about the psychology of memorized music versus improvisation. I realized in the first 2 videos that I made on flow and the third video that I'm preparing, I'm focused solely on improvisation. I was completely ignoring the concept of getting into the zone while you're playing memorized music. And I have a huge history of that with growing up in drum and bugle corps. The zone was like, I didn't know what it was when I was a teenager, but it was definitely a state that I was familiar with. We would prepare this 10-minute show, and there would be times when we'd start the show and would finish the show, and I didn't remember at all what had happened in those 10 minutes. And that's kind of the most extreme form of being in the zone I can think of, right? The main difference to me that separates that performing through composed music in the zone versus performing improvised music in the zone, they both require lots of repetition. And then once you're performing, it's a similar mindset, but it's a little different. The repetition, when you're trying to improvise, you're repeating lots of different things so that you know how to, on the fly, stream ideas together. So there's still repetition, but you're not trying to learn to do things by rote, right? You're essentially trying to free yourself to be able to go anywhere. It's like a choose your own adventure story. Playing something that's through composed and trying to get into that zone state, it still requires lots of repetition, but now the repetition is about doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over until you kind of can't do it wrong. A friend of mine on Facebook recently reminded me of the old gem, don't practice until you can play it right, practice until you can't play it wrong. And that's really what you're trying to do, especially when you're building up something that's a through composed piece. I wanted to tell you a little story about that because I think it helps to illustrate what's going on. When I went to Berkeley in my mid-20s, I fell madly in love with the marimba right away, right? I showed up, I was pretty good at drum set. I was kind of arrogantly like, well, I already played drum set pretty well, so the best bang for my buck is to do other stuff besides drum set. And so that's why I studied composition, because I had never really studied theory before. But then I also did total percussion, so imagine kind of orchestral, but also with some Afro-Cuban and Latin percussion mixed in as my principal instrument, partly because it let me play marimba. So I fell in love with the marimba. My grandmother bought me a 5-octave marimba my first semester at Berkeley because I was spoiled. My marimba teacher literally said to me, it's like you're buying a Ferrari and you don't know how to drive. Ooh, right? Ooh. And so I've always reacted well to that sort of snark teacher. And so I set about proving her wrong. And my second semester, I was in the marimba performance ensemble. And in the middle of the semester, I actually had a medical emergency. I had to have my gallbladder removed. Pretty entertainingly, almost died, but that's another story. But so I had been playing marimba for like 7 months, maybe 7 or 8 months by the time this recital rolled around, and we played a lot of pieces that were really fun. But the piece that I did as a solo was October Night by Michael Burritt. And I was in way over my head playing this piece, right? Like literally I had never played four mallet anything before going to Berkeley. So I'm like, what did I say? Let's say 7 months into four mallet technique. And here I am playing this like legit actual piece of music, that one might really perform on a real concert. And so I played the piece a little slower than probably I should have. It's a really beautiful piece. The first movement is this nice chordal, really beautiful arrangement, a really beautiful score. And then the second movement is this really angular, pointillistic, running up and down. If you don't know what the marimba is, it's like, longer than this or wider than this, and this deep. So you're moving back and forth. It's an energetic instrument to play, and the piece is based on Dylan Thomas's "Do Not Go Gentle Into That Good Night," which is a poem about the poet's father dying and him wanting his father not to die. So there's a lot of emotion and energy in this piece. And so I was feeling that. I had practiced the piece a lot. So the day of the recital comes, like I say, I'm in over my head, but that's kind of my nature. And so I play the first movement fine, and I get into the second movement, and maybe the middle somewhere, I realized I saw it coming, right? I was like, it's over there. I realized I didn't know, I didn't remember what came next. And I have a very strict rule about not stopping once you're on stage performing. That's like I will like kill myself to do something to not stop, right? And so I had to do something. So I played a couple like block chords, just, all four mallets together, with like the notes that had been, that I had been playing on these particular runs. And the whole time my brain is going a million times a minute. I'm thinking, this is like the exact opposite of being in the zone, right? I'm thinking, think fast, rabbit. What am I going to do? So I decided that my best chance for success was to back up to the part that I remembered and then start playing and essentially take a running jump at it is the way the way that makes sense to me to think about it. That I would trust my hands to get me through the part that my brain was like zoned out on, not the good kind of zone. So I did that, and lo and behold, it worked. My hands, and I've said this before, right? Really, when I say my hands, I don't literally mean my hands. I mean the part of my brain that doesn't need to think about it. But I had played it enough, I had practiced it enough that part of my brain took over. And then I remembered the rest of the piece and I finished the piece. And, either everyone was being very polite or the only person that really noticed was my marimba teacher. She was probably the only one in the audience that knew the piece as well as I did. But it's a really great example to me of both how important repetition is when you're practicing. Oh my goodness, practice until you can't play it wrong, right? So even when you forget it, you can play it right. But also that little moment, right, of backing up and taking a running jump at it, that's a perfect example of the zone to me. And in some ways, purposely entering the zone, right? I knew I had to let go. I had no other option other than stop. And that wasn't going to happen, right? That's a very drum corps thing, right? Because if you if you stop in drum corps and you're in the middle of the field with other people around you marching, you're going to get like run over, right? So no stopping, right? That actually has triggered in me, and I didn't notice it at the time, but that really brought out my love of the word I use is faking it, right? The phrase I use, but more so all I mean is being incredibly reactive. And so, if we're going to put through composed music over here and total improvisation over here, I really try to live over here as much as I can. As drummers, we exist sort of in this interesting gray area when it comes to improvisation, because as long as so let's see, if you're covering someone else's song and you're not doing like a tribute, right? You're not trying to nail it note for note. As long as you know the main groove of the song and you know where the fills are, starts and stops, tempo changes, time signature changes, any of those things, as long as you know the form of the song, you pretty much can play whatever you want as long as you make it feel like it's supposed to feel. That sounds pretty improvisational to me, right? If you're going to play a Rush song and you want to really play it like Neil Peart did, Neil was pretty clear about writing specific parts to songs, and so then it is more through composed and you have less room for improvisation. But in general, as drummers, we have lots of that freedom. On the other side, the through composed side, that mindset has to be a little different, right? Like I said at the beginning, your repetition when you're working on a through composed piece is all about doing it so much that you can do it without thinking about it. We were on tour one time and my drum instructors were doing that whole "you should be able to play this in your sleep" thing. And one morning, someone who had been sleeping nearby me on the gym floor said that I had been drumming on my tummy in my sleep, which I think is the coolest thing ever. That's possibly one of my favorite stories about myself, that I was literally drumming in my sleep. But right, so that's that through composed, and that's the way to enter the zone in that way. Next week, hopefully, in our next episode, when we get back to our improvisational zone talk, we're going to talk about that repetition too, but the repetition, again, it's different. And the first two episodes about the zone have been kind of on that side, right? I've been kind of ignoring the through composed because that's not where I live anymore. But I realized, oh, hey, I should talk about that. And so I wanted to talk about that. I recorded a longer version of this video because I told a few other stories and I expanded on some concepts a little bit. And I'm gonna put that one over on the Patreon feed. So if you don't know, I started a Patreon recently. It's patreon.com/PenningLarson. And there's going to be some extra videos going on there. There'll be some early release stuff. And I would love it if you wanted to support me. That's a great way to do it. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up. If you dislike this video, give it a thumbs down. If you want to leave a comment, I would love that down below. If you want to subscribe to the channel, that would also be great. And if you want to get notified when I actually upload or go live, you can hit the little notification icon and then you might actually get notified. All right. Thanks so much for watching. I will see you again soon with actual drumming videos, but I felt like this was an important thing to at least mention. And so I wanted to tell you that story because I think that's a really good example story of don't stop. And that's kind of the most unusual way of entering the zone that I could think of to tell you about, right? Like kind of totally forcing it. I'm going to back up take a running jump and go, and kind of muscle myself into the zone. And it worked, so yay. All right, I will see you guys all again real soon. I love you very much. Bye.